Revealed, I took a stand and cut off their support. The touching transformation that followed. James stood in his cramped home office, facing an array of papers strewn across the desk, the remnants of his life's work. The dim light from the single window cast shadows over the formulas he had scribbled, each a testament to years spent pursuing a dream that felt increasingly ephemeral. His parents' voices echoed in his memory, demanding he abandon the research that had consumed him for over a decade, pushing him instead toward the security of a corporate job that felt like a gilded cage. Their insistence had twisted into a suffocating web, leaving him grappling with guilt and frustration. He was a father, a husband, a man caught in the turmoil of expectation and desire. What would happen if he let go? The thought tore at him as he paced the room. Could he really sever the financial lifeline his parents provided? Each month brought a flood of bills threatening to drown their family's modest comforts. Yet there it was, a simmering dissatisfaction. He yearned for more than just stability, he craved meaning. Drenched in despair one night, he finally made the decision: he would cut ties with their support, risking everything for a chance at authenticity. Yet, now, guilt weighed like lead on his chest as he returned home. "How can I do this?" he whispered, eyes flickering toward the hallway where his children played, laughter softening his heart, only amplifying the panic within. Sarah met him with understanding eyes, the warmth of her touch both a balm and a reminder of the strain his choices imposed. "What matters is not the paycheck, but your purpose," she said quietly, her unwavering support tethering him to the hope that perhaps he could still carve out a path. But cold facts loomed ominously around them: bills unpaid, an uncertain future. James' heart raced as he sat down at the kitchen table, the weight of financial strain pressing heavily upon him, when he stumbled onto a hidden talent, teaching at the local university. It became a lifeline, a flicker of joy in his murky sea of self-doubt. Each student brought with them questions that reignited his passion, and as he dove deeper into academia, he felt the ghost of his ambitions come back to life. His enthusiasm was contagious, he could see it igniting a fervor in young minds, but recognition from the broader academic world still felt just out of reach. Suddenly, a breakthrough arrived, an unexpected recognition for a project long shelved. The wave of accolades washed over him, but amid the pride, unease gnawed at his insides. Each trophy was a bittersweet reminder of the approval he had turned away from. What if it was never enough? He had severed ties with his parents but could not shake the belief that their validation was still a gold standard. Now, as his voice began to echo in conferences and journals, he found himself straddling two worlds, one of frozen expectations and another bursting with potential. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But peace was elusive. Family dinners became battlegrounds of unspoken words and simmering tensions. Each encounter with his parents brought an uneasy reminder of their outsized influence in the shadows of his success. Would they ever see the man he was becoming beyond their expectations? James could feel confrontation approaching like a storm on the horizon. The twisted root of resentment planted years ago threatened to uproot everything he had fought for. As he readied himself for the inevitable clash, he felt the tightening in his chest. Once more the suffocating grip of doubt and recognition that history had a way of tainting the present. Was it possible to truly prove his worth while standing against the very people who shaped his life? The answer lay obscured in the impending storm, and James could do little more than hold his breath, waiting for the tumult to break. The night loomed heavy as James sat at the edge of his bed, the weight of his choices carving lines on his forehead. The silhouette of his children slept peacefully down the hall, their innocent breaths a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling in his mind. The day of confrontation was approaching, and it filled him with dread that had become a familiar companion over the past weeks. Would they listen? Would they understand? Morning came with a clear sky, mirroring the resolve that began to crystallize within him. The chaotic internal dialogue, a blend of fear, hope, and anger, slowly started to transform into a focused determination. It was time to revisit the research that had been collecting dust, a lifeline he had previously cast aside. Validator papers adorned his desk, bearing witness to the complex journey he had navigated. Fire ignited within him, and he made a plan to present his work with conviction, not just as a scholar, but as a passionate advocate of knowledge, a voice that demanded to be heard. As he prepared his presentation, every detail felt like part of a larger tapestry woven with strands of resilience and growth. The more he practiced, the more immersed he became in the essence of his findings. He visualized standing in front of an audience, not as a timid boy seeking approval but as a seasoned researcher eager to share his insights. This shift was crucial. It opened a door he thought forever locked, breathing life into his once stilled ambitions. The university had a special event lined up, an annual symposium to showcase innovative research contributions. James seized the opportunity, submitting his work with new vigor and a risk that churned his stomach. Would he be accepted? Would they see him as relevant, not merely a footnote in the shadow of his parents' expectations? Days passed, filled with anticipation. The moment he received the acceptance email, a flash of triumph surged through him. Yet, it was quickened by a sudden pang of anxiety. Would this venture alienate him further from his family? Would it deepen the divide? The thought of their disappointment made his stomach churn, but an equally powerful voice whispered, "This is your moment." The night of the symposium arrived, and James found himself on stage surrounded by brilliant minds and eager students. As he began to speak, he felt a wave of electricity wash over him, igniting his passion for the material he had devoted his life to study. The audience hung on his words, and that connection became more invigorating than any validation he'd ever sought from his parents. He spoke of the importance of purpose, echoing Sarah's sentiments, realizing that the true treasure lay in impacting lives rather than seeking applause. Afterward, he was swarmed by inquisitive students, each of them eager to converse, to question, to learn. For the first time in years, James felt seen not just as a researcher shrouded in self-doubt, but as a mentor poised at the forefront of academic innovation. The joy in their eyes illuminated possibilities he had neglected, reminding him that pursuing his dreams could also light the path for others. But the evening ended with an uncomfortable knot in his stomach. Questions loomed large even among the applause. How would this achievement resonate with his parents? Would he have the courage to confront them, standing tall in the fullness of his identity? Was he ready to reveal the personal truths that lay beneath the surface of his professional accomplishments? This confrontation had the potential to shatter the remnants of old beliefs, reshaping the familial landscape permanently. As he arrived home, the air crackled with tension and anticipation. He took a deep breath, steeling himself, heart racing with the knowledge that he stood on the precipice of change. The moment had finally come, not just to define his identity but to confront the tangled web of expectations. James stepped inside, knowing there was no turning back. The real question now lingered in the back of his mind: was he prepared to face the storm both within himself and from those he loved? The front door creaked open, and the familiar scent of home washed over him, sandalwood from the incense Sarah had lit, mingling with the distant aroma of the chicken simmering in the kitchen. Yet, the warm ambience felt foreign, overshadowed by an unease that threatened to suffocate him. Each step toward the living room was met with echoes of doubt, clashing with the newfound confidence he had tasted only hours earlier. "Hey, Dad!" his son called, pulling him from his spiraling thoughts. James turned to see Ben darting toward him, a smile plastered on his youthful face. The innocence radiating from his son momentarily softened the boundaries of his tense mind. But then reality seeped back in. Where had he been all those years? And what would this moment mean for them? "Hey, buddy," James replied, forcing a semblance of warmth into his voice. The childless excitement contrasted sharply with the storm brewing inside him. He walked toward the kitchen, where Sarah was setting the table, her posture serene but her eyes scanning him, searching for something in his demeanor. "How was it?" she asked, her tone light but layered with concern. The question hung between them as James attempted to articulate the whirlwind of pride and apprehension nested within him. "It was amazing," he managed, feeling both the weight of his victory and the heaviness of unspoken truths. There was an instinctive urge to downplay the evening, to shield the family from the burden of his aspirations. But it felt as though a dam was breaking an inner reservoir of honesty that demanded release. "That's great," Sarah cheered, unaware of the conflict raging in his chest. "Did you get any good feedback?" "Positive, very positive," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The word positive spiraled into a cacophony of what-ifs, but then an unexpected clarity settled in, clarity that each positive remark did not erase the need for an essential conversation looming in the shadows. "Can we sit down for a minute?" James's voice was steadier than he felt as he motioned toward the living room. Seconds stretched like hours, and he could sense Sarah's confusion deepening as they took their places on the couch. Ben, sensing the shift, settled at their feet, playing with his toy cars, blissfully ignorant of the impending dialogue. "What's on your mind, James?" Sarah's inquiry was gentle yet probing, like a lifeline tossed into turbulent waters. The moment hung before him, an opportunity cloaked in uncertainty. He inhaled sharply, inhaling the courage he had summoned earlier in the day, fueling his resolve. "I've made some choices," he began, feeling their weight in his chest. "I pursued my research without consideration for how it might be perceived by you and my parents." Silence enveloped the room as he continued, "And it's time I stopped letting that define me." Her brow furrowed, appreciation and concern wrestling for dominance in her expression. The pause felt eternal, yet it stirred a truth neither of them could ignore. "I want to be more than just your husband or the doctor you expect. I want to be your partner who's willing to stand apart if it means pursuing something genuinely meaningful," he declared. Ben glanced up, sensing the shift in energy, his small hand still for a moment. Sarah's eyes softened, but the shadow of uncertainty loomed large between them. "What does that mean for us?" she asked, her voice steady yet barely concealing the trembling undercurrent. A flicker of vulnerability ignited within James. "It may mean difficult conversations. It might mean my decisions don't align with expectations, even yours." The silence that followed was deafening. It coiled around him, pressing in from all angles. Was he ready for her disappointment? For the children's confusion? Yet a small spark flickered inside him, urging him forward. "I need to talk to my parents too," he finally admitted. "I can't keep living a version of myself that doesn't exist, and if that means cutting off support, then so be it." Sarah leaned back, her expression unreadable. In that moment, the house settled into a state of contemplation, a palpable tension thickening the air. As she opened her mouth to speak, James braced himself for impact. The confrontation seemed inevitable, and he was readying himself to confront not just his past, but the future he hoped to carve out amidst the uncertainty. A sudden ring from his cell phone shattered the charged silence, and he glanced down to see an unfamiliar number. The thought surged forward: who could it be? A friend? A colleague? Or perhaps, the call that would challenge everything he thought he knew? Was this the universe prompting another confrontation in his journey toward authenticity? James felt the weight of the call pressing down on him, its vibration a stark reminder of the uncertainty that lay not just in his future, but in the very fabric of his past. He hesitated, torn between answering and allowing it to slip into the ether like so many missed chances in his life. Taking a deep breath, he accepted the call, half expecting a familiar voice but instead met with silence. "Hello," he ventured, his voice steady, yet a thread of apprehension threaded through the syllables. "James?" "It's Helen," came the voice, cautious and familiar, slinking into his ear with a mixture of warmth and hesitation. Helen, a mentor from his early career, someone who had anchored him through the turbulent waters of academia. "I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." He could hear the underlying concern, and it stirred an uneasiness deep within him. "Not at all," he replied, the practiced politeness colliding with the truth of the moment he was standing on the precipice of redefining who he was. "I wanted to congratulate you on your presentation tonight. I heard it went stellar," she continued. The pride in her voice was palpable and, for an instant, it lit the creeping darkness of doubt hovering in his mind. "Thanks, it was a pivotal moment for me," he said, feeling the gravity of those words. Suddenly, the conversation shifted, a wave of nostalgia washed over him as he thought of Helen's guidance in helping him navigate the complexities of his field. James, I also wanted to talk about future opportunities. There's an opening on a research project I think you'd be perfect for. I believe it could help redefine your trajectory in this industry, she offered, full of sincerity. As she spoke, a part of him yearned for that validation, yet with it came the familiar strain of his old life threatening to eclipse the new path he was struggling to carve. He was being offered a safety net, but the very nature of that net represented everything he was ready to leave behind. Helen, he started, the heavy syllables coiling in his throat. That sounds incredible, but I need to be honest. I'm stepping away from traditional paths, realigning with what I truly want. I may not be the person you think I am. There was a pause on the other end, the silence thick, almost tangible. What do you mean? She asked, tentatively. I've been running from who I am, trying to fit into molds that aren't me, he confessed, the words tumbling out with a sense of urgency that surprised even him. I want to pursue things that matter to me, ones that resonate with my convictions, rather than simply following what's expected. Helen shifted, the sounds of her environment filtered through, reminding him of the professional world he was now distancing himself from. And what if you're making a mistake? What if walking away from this opportunity sets you back? Her concern echoed what these last few weeks had conjured within him, the fear of loss, of abandoning safety for the unknown. Maybe it does, he said, his voice steadier than he expected. But if I don't try to align my work with my values, what's the point? The line fell silent again, and when she finally spoke, it was tinged with a mixture of disappointment and understanding. I can't help but worry. Just know that this industry is unforgiving. It could be a long time before you find your bearings. James felt a sense of fortification blossom within him. He understood that stepping away did not mean abandoning all, it was an evolution, a necessary shedding. I appreciate the concern, Helen, but I'm prepared to navigate whatever comes next. This feels right. I need to do this for myself and my family. He hung up, adrenaline coursing through him. It was unsettling, exhilarating, a merging of fear and possibility. It was a step taken from the familiar, unsteady but resolute. As he returned to Sarah and Ben, a newfound energy coursed through him. He needed to tackle the harder conversations, to weave this nascent vision into the fabric of his life. Everything okay? Sarah's eyes were searching, drawing him in. It is, he said, and he meant it though uncertainty still danced at the edges of his resolve. I just made a decision about the future. And now, I need to confront the past, my parents. At that moment, clarity washed over him like sunlight breaking through clouds. He wasn't just stepping forward, he was ready to dismantle the walls that had confined him for so long. Believing that the confrontation would hinge not merely on arguments, but on revelations, he braced himself for the emotional fallout that would ensue. It was time to face his parents, to unveil the truth that pulsed beneath the surface of his life. Anxiety gripped him as he wondered, how would they respond to his newfound commitment? The moment of truth loomed ahead, tinged with the promise of liberation or perhaps disaster. James took a deep breath, willing the air to steady his racing heart. He understood that every inch closer to his parents meant facing the familiar anxieties that had once stifled him. He was stepping out of the shadows of expectation, ready to carve a new identity that aligned with who he truly was. With a tight grip on the steering wheel, he navigated the road leading to his childhood home, a place filled with memories both warm and suffocating. As the house came into view, he remembered the arguments, the expectations, the subtle disapproval woven into the fabric of family discussions. They would expect him to be the successful son, one who embraced stability over uncertainty. Yet, uncertainty was now his ally, the catalyst for a future he could barely define but desperately craved. He parked the car, took another fortifying breath, and stepped out into the cold air. The crunch of gravel underfoot mirrored the nervous tension coiling in his stomach. Each step toward the door felt monumental, a weighty assertion of his intent. When his mother opened the door, her smile faltered for a moment as confusion flickered across her features before she quickly masked it with warmth. James. We weren't expecting you. Is everything all right? Hi, Mom. Can I come in? He asked, the words hanging in the air like a fragile declaration. Of course. She replied, stepping aside with a hint of concern in her eyes. He entered, taking in the familiar scents and sights that felt like a time capsule of his childhood. The living room was a collage of family photographs, each smiling face a reminder of the expectations that towered over him like looming giants. Sitting down on the worn couch, he felt an ache of nostalgia. Then, he glanced up and met his mother's expectant gaze, a mixture of love and wariness. I have something important to discuss. Before he could begin, his father appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. James. Good to see you, son. What brings you here? Dad, he started, feeling the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. I wanted to talk about my career. I've made some decisions that I think we need to discuss. His father's posture shifted, the casualness fading as he took a seat across from James, arms crossed. What kind of decisions? You're not planning on quitting your job, are you? Heat surged through James as he felt a familiar tension rise. I am redefining what work means to me. I need to align my job with my values, even if it means leaving behind what you both may see as success. This sounds serious, his mother interjected softly, an attempt to diffuse the simmering unrest in the room. It's a huge step, James continued, pushing forward despite the weight of their expectations pressing down on him. I want to chase opportunities that matter to me, even if it means taking risks or facing setbacks. I can't keep conforming to a path that doesn't resonate with me anymore. The silence stretched, punctuated only by the ticking clock, an echo of their shared tension. Then his father spoke, the words carefully considered. But son, what if this path leads you nowhere? You've worked too hard to throw it all away. James felt a pull between old patterns and new convictions. It's not about throwing it away, Dad. It's about creating something meaningful for myself. This is my life, my journey. I need your support, but it's about authenticity now, not roles or titles. His mother's eyes glistened with unshed tears, a wave of heartbreak mingled with understanding. We just want you to be happy, even if we don't always understand your choices. Their struggle mirrored the conflict within him, love juxtaposed with fear. Could they truly accept the new direction he was taking? Or would this rupture the bond he desperately wanted to preserve? As silence blanketed the room, he sensed the pent-up emotions simmering beneath the surface, the emotional battle lines drawn. James swallowed hard, determined to press ahead, to carve this new reality for himself, regardless of the outcome. It was time to give voice to his truth. I want to take this leap, Mom, Dad. But I need you to understand, I'm ready to face whatever comes next, without the safety net of expectations. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, a jarring interruption. James's heart raced. Was it a friend, an unwelcome relative, or perhaps someone who might throw uncertainty into the already fragile moment? Who could that be? His father murmured, glancing toward the door. The unknown loomed ahead, leaving James both anxious and resolute. He had taken a stand, but he also knew the conversation was far from over. Would he have the strength to confront whatever lay behind that door? James's heart thrummed loudly in his chest as the anticipation of the uninvited visitor weighed heavily on his mind. The atmosphere in the room shifted, creating an almost electric tension as he sat on the edge of his seat. Each passing moment felt like an eternity, unraveling the thread of courage he had woven with his family. He could almost hear the invisible lines of familial expectation tightening around him, suffocating the air he had just begun to clear. We should see who it is, his mother ventured cautiously, her voice a fragile bridge over the growing chasm of uncertainty. His father nodded, still staring at the door, the tension on his face betraying a mix of curiosity and apprehension. James clasped his hands together, willing his thoughts to pivot. This wasn't the time to backtrack. He fought to remain anchored in his decision, yet the reverberation of footsteps approaching the door sent fresh waves of doubt crashing against the walls he had tried so desperately to fortify. When the door swung open, a figure stood silhouetted in the late afternoon light, a neighbor, perhaps, or a distant relative. But it was neither. Standing there, with a hesitant smile and hands thrust deep into his pockets, was Sarah, his college friend and confidant, the very embodiment of the adventurous life he aspired to reclaim. "James. I didn't know you were back." Her voice was buoyant, laced with warmth and familiarity amid the suffocating tension of the room. His parents' expressions morphed into a mix of relief and surprise, both unsure how to process this unplanned interruption. "Hey, Sarah," he managed to reply, feeling a slight infusion of strength at the sight of someone who saw past the expectations of his upbringing. She stepped inside, exuding an energy that seemed to dispel the heavy atmosphere. "Sorry for dropping by unannounced," she said, a genuine smile lighting up her features. "I thought I'd see if you wanted to catch up. I heard you were back in town." James felt the stir of excitement that came with authentic connection and the promise of unfiltered conversation. "Actually, I was just talking to my parents about some major changes in my life," he said, feeling emboldened by her presence. "But I would love for you to join us." "Is it a family reunion or a therapy session?" Sarah joked, infusing levity into the air. James chuckled, grateful for the reprieve. "Maybe a bit of both." As the three of them settled into the living room, James sensed an opportunity emerging, an additional voice to help bridge the chasm of misunderstanding separating him from his parents. He felt reinvigorated, ready to voice more of his truth. "Actually, what I was trying to say," he began, catching both Sarah's encouraging gaze and his parents' earnest attention, "is that I want to pursue a career that speaks to my values, and I might leave my current job to find what fulfills me. It's about finding my path, even if it seems daunting." "Leaving a secure job for something uncertain?" his father said, not masking the surprise etched on his face. "Yes, Dad," James replied, his heart racing but conviction firm. "I need to explore what I'm passionate about, and I can't do it tied down by expectations that don't fit me anymore. I want to create impact, not just income." Sarah leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "You know, I once worked with a startup focused on sustainable food systems. It was risky, but it taught me more than any corporate job ever could. It's worth the discomfort." Her words hung in the air, and for the first time, James could sense a shift. His mother looked to his father, then back to Sarah, slowly absorbing the message that echoed through the exchange. "What if we explored this together?" she asked, her voice softening, unfurling some of the tension that had previously swallowed them whole. "What if we looked at what you need to make this work? We want to support you, even if we're still processing what that looks like." Tears pricked at the corners of James's eyes. "Thank you. That means everything." For once, the dialogue felt like a collaboration rather than a negotiation. But just as the burden began to lift, a thought crept in, anchoring the joy that blossomed. What was truly at stake in this new trajectory? Could he sustain this newfound courage when faced with his own fears or, worse, when the familiar pressures returned? The laughter and conversation morphed into an unspoken pact, a tether of support he needed from them, now intertwined with uncertainty about the future. Yet as the sun melted toward the horizon, James felt an odd mix of exhilaration and dread. The conversation was one step, but the path ahead remained untread and daunting. For every ounce of newfound freedom, an equal weight of responsibility began to form in his chest. Sarah's presence was a lifeline, but he would soon need to confront the reality that lay beyond these walls, with both clarity and commitment. The moment had shifted, but the journey was just beginning. The leap he contemplated was only the first phase of a greater test. He turned to his family and Sarah with newfound resolve, ready to chart the map of his future. Each step would define the authenticity he craved. Would they truly stand with him as he confronted that inevitable crossroads? The doorbell echoed again, and his heart raced. What new challenge awaited him now, waiting among the uncertainties of the world beyond? James exhaled sharply, the doorbell echoing like a thunderclap in his mind. His heart raced, fueled by both anticipation and uncertainty. It felt as though he stood on the precipice of a cliff, staring into the unknown abyss that lay ahead. His family's encouraging words still resonated within him, a comforting hum contrasted by the sharp intrusion of reality. Who could that be? Sarah leaned forward, her brow slightly furrowed, mirroring James' own apprehension. Only one way to find out, he responded, rising from his chair with a push of determination. He moved toward the door, every step a reminder of the courage he had summoned earlier, every heartbeat a pulse of resolve. He opened the door slowly, expecting another friend or neighbor. Instead, his stomach twisted at the sight of an old colleague standing on the doorstep. Tom had once been a mentor but had become a symbol of everything James had been trying to escape from: corporate conformity. "Hey, James." "It's been a while," Tom said, an air of familiarity in his voice, though it was laced with something almost predatory. "I heard you were back. Thought I'd check in and see how things are going at the firm." A chill crept up James' spine. "I'm in the middle of a family discussion right now, Tom," he replied, firm yet polite, conscious of the unstable boundary between professional obligation and personal evolution. "Ah, come on. Just for a minute," Tom insisted, stepping forward, casting a glance over James' shoulder into the living room filled with confusion and uncertainty. His gaze flitted toward Sarah, who remained quietly observant, evaluating the dynamics of this unexpected confrontation. "Why don't you come back another time?" James said, trying to maintain a sense of control. The voice inside his head urged him to avoid the familiar pull of obligation, to step away from the expectations that Tom represented. "You don't want to let potential job opportunities slip away, do you?" Tom's smug tone dripped with insinuation, igniting a simmering frustration within James. The underlying threat in Tom's words was unmistakable: his past was clawing back, threatening to strip away the grounding he had just begun to build. James felt the weight of his ambitions cascading around him again. Was he prepared to fight this influence? He caught Sarah's supportive gaze and remembered their conversation, how essential it was to voice his ambitions. "No, I don't," he said, choosing his words with precision. "But I also don't want to revisit the life that stifles me. I need to pursue something more meaningful." Tom raised his eyebrows, laughing lightly, though there was an edge to it. "Come on, man, everyone feels that way. You know what they say, it's all about the money." The accusation resonated deep within him, surfacing doubts he thought he had already dismissed. Had he prioritized passion over security recklessly? But as he looked at his parents, confusion replaced with encouragement, he found footing in his resolve. "Not for me, not anymore," James replied, each word a deliberate push against the gravitational pull of his previous life. He stepped back slightly to close the door, feeling a rush of defiance. "I'm sorry, Tom, but I really need to be transparent about where I stand. Right now, I'm taking a different path." As the door clicked shut, a cascade of relief washed over him, yet the weight remained. There was no going back. His decision was defining him, for better or worse. But this small victory against the self-doubt was pivotal, a sign of the transformative journey he was beginning. "Wow," Sarah said, her eyes brightening. "That was impressive. You're standing up for yourself." James met her gaze, a ripple of pride blooming within him. "I'm trying to," he admitted, savoring the stinging blend of vulnerability and strength. The reality outside remained unchanged, but something within him had shifted. The uncertainty of the future still loomed like an imposing shadow, yet every choice he made in this evolving narrative seemed to add a brushstroke to the canvas he was eager to paint. "How long can I keep this up, though?" he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. "I think you're already doing it," Sarah replied softly. "It'll get easier." Yet the gnawing question remained, could he maintain this courage when faced with harsher confrontations? Each decision now held the potential for both growth and challenge. What was next? Just then, as he turned back toward the room, he felt the familiar weight of an impending decision pressing in again. Would the crossroads materialize soon? And when it did, would he have the strength to navigate it, or would he crumble under the weight of expectations he had sought to break free from? James inhaled deeply, heart racing once more, ready to face whatever came next, sensing that a deeper, more defining struggle loomed ahead. The next morning dawned gray and overcast, mirroring the tempest still swirling within James. He sensed the shift in his world. The door he'd shut in Tom's face had not merely been a rejection of the past, It was a solid brick laid in the foundation of the future he dared to envision. He acknowledged the challenge that lay ahead, and with every tick of the clock, the reality of his choices began to settle uneasily in the pit of his stomach. As the sun fought to pierce through the clouds, James sat at the dining table, a mug of coffee cradled in his hands, steam curling upward like thoughts spiraling through his mind. He could feel Sarah's presence beside him, both anchoring and inspiring. His eyes drifted to the window, absorbing the subtle movement of leaves thrashing against the wind. It felt symbolic, the world outside transformed by weather conditions, much like the internal changes he was striving to affirm. "Are you worried?" Sarah broke the silence, her voice gentle yet probing. James turned slightly, gauging her concern etched on her features. "I guess I'm questioning everything again," he admitted, feeling more exposed than he had the day prior. "What if this downpour leads me to something worse?" Her soft smile peered back. "What if it leads you to something better?" "James, every storm can wash away what's unneeded." Her optimism was like a lighthouse cutting through the fog of his uncertainty, yet doubt still fluttered around him, whispering about hidden opportunities slipping away. He craved stability, yet his desire for authenticity was pushing him to a precipice of his own making. "I could call Tom, perhaps hear him out," James finally said, testing the waters of his hesitance. "Why would you do that? Just out of fear?" Her piercing gaze remained unyielding, forcing him to confront the real source of his panic. "I need a safety net, Sarah. What if leaving that life means saying goodbye to comforts too?" He countered, wrestling with the reality of a life that felt both enticing and terrifying. "Growth doesn't generally come with comfort," she replied, leaning back thoughtfully. "You have to choose if you want to bask in the warmth of familiarity or dare to embrace the unknown." Her words echoed against the walls of his heart, reverberating within the spaces he hadn't touched in years. The desire to embrace the unknown wrestled with the fear of personal and professional upheaval. He needed a plan, an actionable pathway away from complacency. That evening, he scribbled down all that he had always dreamed of pursuing. The list grew longer with each bullet point: writing, consulting, motivational speaking. These paths shimmered with promise but also uncertainty. What did he have to offer? Would anyone listen? Yet, as he wrote, an undercurrent of excitement spread through him. He began to map out potential steps for each dream, each one a checkmark against the daily grind he sought to escape. Before he knew it, hours had slipped away. James paused, realizing that in facing his fears, he had inadvertently breathed life into his ambitions. He had equipped himself with tools he didn't know he possessed, revealing an inner resolve he had long suppressed. But the brightest flames cast the darkest shadows. In the stillness of the night, a chill snaked down his spine as he realized he would have to confront Tom again, this time on his own terms. Was he prepared to withstand the fallout? Just as he considered reaching out to share his newfound intentions, his phone rang. He hesitated, the familiar name lighting up the screen. Tom's name flickered with the promise of unresolved confrontation. Could he take the call and steer the conversation in a way that affirmed his journey rather than drew him back into the mire of corporate constraints? James's heart thudded, caught in that moment of truth, at the crossroads he had built. He inhaled deeply, knowing that this could redefine everything once more. Would he answer? The faint sound of the ringtone echoed, and he realized his next battle was imminent, setting him on a path he had to navigate alone. The phone continued to ring, and James felt the weight of the decision hanging in the air. Each chime pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, threading anxiety through his core. This was the moment that could serve as his anchor or drag him back into the depths of his old life. With a decisive breath, he rejected the pull of fear and hit answer. "Hey, Tom," he managed to say, his voice steadying even as doubt lingered in the shadows of his mind. "James. I didn't expect to hear from you," Tom replied, a hint of surprise tinged with eagerness. "I've been meaning to talk. We need to figure things out from last week." James felt his pulse quicken. The conversation could pivot into the familiar territory of negotiation and compromise, but he was determined to navigate this dialogue on his own terms. "I'm not sure what there is to figure out. I think we stand in very different places now." There was silence on the other end, and it wrapped around him like a shroud, threatening to choke his newfound courage. He pushed through. I've had time to reflect, and I realize I need to pursue my own path, one that doesn't involve the firm. Are you serious? Tom scoffed. You're throwing everything away for some dreams? It's risky. You know we can offer you security, a solid career path. Don't let fleeting thoughts lead you to reckless decisions. The challenge echoed Tom's voice like a siren, beckoning him back into safe waters. But the security doesn't bring me fulfillment. It's stifling, Tom. I want something else, I need something else, he asserted, feeling a spark of defiance light up within him. Look, you're just not thinking clearly, Tom replied, a sense of urgency creeping into his tone. This new idea? It could crash down just as fast as it was built. You'll miss the benefits all for what? A few inspiring words? A flicker of anger surfaced in James, mingling with determination. You're treating my potential like it's a fleeting whim. These aren't just words, they're the essence of who I am, and they deserve the chance to grow. The air shifted, charged with an electric tension, as Tom processed the shift in James's resolve. You don't mean that. You're good at your job, you've got it made. Throwing that away would be foolish. James could feel the tides of fear pulling at him again but pressed forward through the mounting swell. Perhaps. But I'd rather pursue my passions and stumble than remain anchored in place, stagnant. I deserve the chance to find out what I'm capable of. Don't you want that for me? A long pause ensued, Tom's silence filling the spaces James had carved out for his dreams. I just don't want to see you fail, Tom finally murmured, a hint of concern dispelling the antagonistic tone he'd carried. I appreciate that, but I have to do this for me. It feels necessary. James felt lighter, a weight shifting as he spoke those words. Fine, Tom replied, disappointment mixed with resignation. If you're determined, I can't stop you. But don't say I didn't warn you. As the call ended, James released his breath, an unexpected buoyancy weaving its way through his chest. He had held court, declaring his intent to follow a path unpaved. This confrontation was more than an exchange with Tom, it was a fierce declaration of independence, a rejection of the past holding him hostage. He felt the flickering ember of hope within him spark into a flame. The thrill of potential stretched before him, promising a world rich with possibilities waiting to be explored. Yet, as exhilaration coursed through his veins, a new concern clawed at him. How would he manifest these dreams without the safety net Tom and their former life provided? Shifting slightly in his chair, he resolved to strategize. He would need tangible steps, outlined goals, something concrete to guide him through the chaos of change. He recalled the earlier list he decompiled and felt invigorated by its promise. But a fleeting shadow crossed his thoughts. Had he made a hasty choice? With no safety net to catch him, the uncertain terrain loomed large. Just as he began to jot down actionable goals, his phone buzzed again. Another call, this time an unknown number. The pit in his stomach tightened. Was it a sign he was entering a storm he wasn't prepared for? Feeling both fearful and emboldened, James stared at the screen, wondering if this new call held the key to his next step or a detour away from his envisioned future. James stood before the mirror the next morning, a blend of anticipation and trepidation swirling in the pit of his stomach. After weeks of standing firm against the pressures of his past and embracing the unknown, he felt the universe conspiring to remind him of the stakes at play. Each reflection showed not just his face but the evolution he had undergone. He wasn't just a husband or father caught in familial expectations anymore. He was emerging as a man committed to redefining himself, ready to leave a lasting legacy. The sensation of ambition tingled in his fingertips as he prepared for his first self-organized workshop on meaningful career transitions. In a few short hours, he would stand before a group of eager participants, sharing the strategies that had begun to illuminate his path toward authenticity. As he rehearsed, the words flowed with newfound ease, no longer fragmentary thoughts but instead a coherent vision forged from the challenges he had faced. Today, I will prove not just to others but to myself that this journey is legitimate, he spoke silently, bolstered by confidence that felt deeply earned. He understood that tangible achievement didn't always come with accolades, but in moments of genuine connection and empowerment. Walking into the venue, sunlight streamed through the tall windows, brightening the spacious conference room. The energy pulsated as participants settled in, each one a little spark of possibility eager to learn. As he took a deep breath, James felt the gentle hum of excitement synchronize with his heartbeat. It was clear now, he had come to inspire and share rather than to seek approval. Standing at the front of the room, he introduced himself with clarity. "Welcome, everyone. My name is James, and I'm here to share the transformative lessons I've gleaned from my own journey, a journey that began with the courage to let go of expectations and embrace authenticity." The words fell from his lips with conviction, no longer tremors of doubt but resounding truths that reverberated within him. As he spoke, it became evident that his story resonated. Laughter bubbled up from the crowd at his self-deprecating anecdotes, and nods of understanding rippled through the audience. Acceptance transformed the space. Here, ideas flourished in an atmosphere untouched by judgment. By the end of the workshop, James felt a collective surge of energy. Participants approached him with gratitude, eager to echo their thoughts and feelings. "I've never been able to express what I truly wanted," said one woman, tears glimmering in her eyes. "Hearing you made me realize change is possible." "Thank you." James felt his heart swell, a sense of fulfillment flooding over him. He had mattered today, it was clear. He had transformed a collection of disjointed life experiences into something meaningful. It wasn't just validation, it was a commitment to providing value to others while nurturing their growth. This was his calling, a career blooming out of purpose rather than the confines of expectation. Later, as he celebrated with friends at a nearby cafe, his phone buzzed once more. Another unknown number, but this time something compelled him to answer without hesitation. "Hello? James, it's Helen again," she said, warmth tinging her voice. "I've been hearing rave reviews about your workshop. I'd love to discuss some potential collaboration on a project that aligns perfectly with your mission." In that moment, a wave of exhilarating clarity washed over him. This was the opportunity he sought to elevate his passions, a chance to redefine his trajectory in a way that blended personal fulfillment with community impact. Was this a fortuitous turn of fate? "Absolutely, let us meet," he replied, enthusiasm igniting his spirit. The fears of yesterday began to dim, replaced by an undeniable sense of direction. His past tea vanished, it had become the scaffolding for everything he wanted to build ahead. As James hung up the phone, an undeniable warmth enveloped him. The path forward no longer felt like uncharted territory but an expansive horizon teeming with potential. He recognized that, while the uncertainties of life remained, he now possessed the tools and resilience to navigate them confidently. He glanced around the table at his friends, sharing laughter and stories. Personal fulfillment wasn't about distancing himself from those who loved him, it was about creating bonds grounded in mutual respect and authentic expression. Today, he had not only converged the personal and professional realms but had forged deeper connections with others as they walked through their own transformations. James raised his glass, invigorated by palpable joy and comradeship. To new beginnings and bravery, he toasted, the weight of his journey settling into something profoundly liberating. And in that moment, he knew he had conquered. He had not only stood up against the expectations but had transformed them into stepping stones guiding him toward a brighter future. He had arrived at a newfound position of self-recognition, armed with confidence and clarity, truly ready to embark on the journey that awaited him. The call for living authentically rang louder than ever. So now, he sat resolutely prepared for what lay ahead, emerging as a beacon of inspiration for those similarly seeking to navigate the shadows into the light of genuine possibility. As you reflect on James's journey, let it propel you forward and inspire your own path. The time is now. Don't wait another minute. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support means everything. Comment your reactions and theories about how James transformed. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. True fans of personal overcoming stories recognize the urgency. Only with your support can we continue to build a community grounded in growth and resilience.